Chapter 5. Contact. Okafor. Chamber 9 was a cathedral. That was Okafor's first thought as the passage opened and their lights found the space. The sheer scale of it, the vaulted ceiling rising into darkness above them, the walls sweeping outward in curves that felt less geological and more architectural. The cavern was roughly 40 meters across and at least 20 high, the dimensions confirming the survey team's original measurements, but numbers on a datapad didn't prepare you for the physical reality of standing in a space this vast, this deep underground, this far from anything human. The formations were everywhere. They covered the floor and lower walls in clusters, exactly as Petra Novak's photographs had documented. Dark, dense, bulbous structures rising from the rock like blisters on burned skin. Some were small, fist-sized. Others were large, the size of a human head or bigger. They were arranged in groups of 3 to 6, spaced at semi-regular intervals, oriented toward the chamber entrance in a pattern that Tanaka immediately recognized, and that made her stop walking. "They're the same," Tanaka whispered. "Identical to Park's description. The clustering, the orientation, the morphology. These are the seeds." Marsh moved past her into the chamber. His helmet camera was recording, his movements quick with the focused energy of a scientist confronting the subject of his life's work. He crouched beside the nearest cluster and aimed his light at the formations. The surface was smooth, dark, absorbing the light rather than reflecting it. The same mottled coloring, deep grays and blacks with undertones of blue. The same light-drinking quality that made them hard to see clearly even under direct illumination. "They're warm," he said, his gloved hand hovering a centimeter above the nearest formation. "Significant thermal output. And the surface, there are seam lines, hairline fractures in a pattern consistent with—" "Don't touch them," Okafor said. "I wasn't going to." "You were leaning." Marsh straightened up. He had the look of a man restraining himself through conscious effort, the scientific compulsion to examine warring with the survival instinct that the last 24 hours had sharpened into something urgent. Okafor scanned the chamber. The formations occupied the lower third of the space, concentrated on the floor and the lower walls. The upper walls and ceiling were bare rock. Or had been, before the biological coating had reached them. The dark, organic material that had lined the tunnels was present here too, but different, thicker, more structured. It formed shapes on the upper walls that Okafor's brain tried to categorize and couldn't. Ridges, channels, enclosed spaces that might have been functional or might have been something else entirely. The chamber felt cultivated, maintained. Not a natural space that creatures had moved into, but a space that had been shaped, over time, into something purposeful. "Commander," Tanaka said. She was standing near the center of the chamber, her light aimed downward. "The formations extend below floor level. There are openings in the rock, fissures, natural channels, and I can see more formations below. Deeper, many more." Okafor moved to her position and looked. The cave floor was not solid. It was fractured, threaded with gaps and fissures that opened onto lower chambers. Through the largest fissure, roughly a meter wide, their lights reached down another 10 meters and found formations covering every surface. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Packed tighter than the ones in Chamber 9, layered over each other in dense clusters that extended beyond what the light could reach. "This is one chamber," Tanaka said. "One node in a system we can't see the extent of. If the cave network extends as far as the geological surveys suggest, hundreds of kilometers, thousands, and if the formations are distributed throughout at this density—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "Document everything," Okafor said. "Tanaka, geological survey, composition, distribution, depth readings through the fissures, As much data as you can gather in 15 minutes. Marsh, biological assessment, the coating on the walls, the formation morphology, any observable differences from the samples in Park's lab. Davidge, environmental readings, temperature, atmosphere, anything anomalous. Everyone else, security perimeter. Achebe, cover the entrance. Karim, you have the room. The team dispersed to their tasks. Karim positioned the security element around the chamber's perimeter. Achebe at the entrance passage, Obi and Sato at the flanks, Ruiz roving between positions. Okafor stood at the center and watched, managing the operation while maintaining the tactical awareness that had kept her alive for 12 years of deployments that should have killed her. 12 minutes into the documentation period, Achebe spoke. Movement, entrance passage. Every weapon in the room oriented toward the passage they'd entered through. Lights converged on the opening, a dark mouth in the chamber wall, roughly 2 meters wide and 3 high, the walls coated in the biological material, the floor scored with the tracks they'd made on entry. Distance? Karim asked. Can't tell. I caught displacement in the light. Something changed position in the passage. Maybe 30 meters back. It's not in direct line of sight. One contact? Unknown. I saw one movement. Could be more. The chamber was silent. The team held position. Lights and weapons aimed at the entrance, breathing controlled, trigger fingers indexed. 15 seconds. 30. The passage was empty. The darkness beyond their light's reach held its secrets. Then a sound from above. Not the passage, the ceiling. 20 meters overhead, in the darkness beyond the reach of their helmet lights, something moved across the rock. The sound was light, a scrape, a displacement of air, the contact of something solid against stone. It moved laterally, crossing the ceiling from the entrance side of the chamber toward the far wall, and then stopped. Light snapped upward. 10 beams sweeping the ceiling, searching the dark vaulted space above them. Rock, biological coating, shadow, nothing visible. It's above us, Karim said. I heard it, Okafor confirmed. All lights on the ceiling. Achebe, maintain on the entrance. The beams searched. The ceiling was uneven, natural rock formations, ridges, crevices, the organic material adding texture and depth that created 1,000 places where something could be and not be seen. Okafor strained her eyes, pushing against the limits of what the light could reveal, looking for the shape that didn't belong, the silhouette that was wrong. Ruiz found it. 2 o'clock high, she said, against the ridge formation, 30 degrees off vertical. It's not moving. Okafor aimed her light where Ruiz directed. At first, she saw nothing, rock and organic coating, indistinguishable from the rest of the ceiling. Then her brain caught up with her eyes, and the shape separated from its background, the way a hidden image resolves in a pattern once you know what you're looking for. It was pressed against the ceiling, flattened, limbs spread, its body contoured to the rock surface with such precision that it seemed to be part of it. The dark coloring, the mottled greys and blacks, was nearly identical to the biological material on the walls, a camouflage so effective that Okafor's light had passed over it twice before Ruiz's eye had caught the difference. It was big, bigger than Carl's juvenile had been described in the medical logs. This was something else, something further along, something that had had time and resources to grow beyond the newborn stage. 7 feet, maybe more, the proportions elongated and wrong in ways that made Okafor's brain stutter in its attempts to categorize what it was seeing. Long limbs, too many joints, a torso that was dense and lean, a head, elongated, smooth, tapered, turned toward them. No eyes that she could see, no features, a blank, dark surface oriented in their direction with an attention she could feel like pressure on her skin. It wasn't moving. It was watching. "Nobody fire," Okafor said. Her voice was quiet, controlled, carrying authority through steadiness rather than volume. "Hold positions. Do not engage unless it moves toward us." "Commander," Sato's voice tight with fear. "Hold, Sato!" The creature held its position on the ceiling. The chamber settled into a silence that was worse than noise. The silence of a predator and its prey occupying the same space, each waiting for the other to make the first move. "Tanaka," Okafor said, "are you done?" "I need 3 more minutes." "You have 60 seconds. Tanaka worked. Marsh worked. Davidge recorded his final environmental readings. The security element held their positions, weapons oriented on a creature that didn't move and didn't leave and didn't take its eyeless attention off them. At 45 seconds, the creature shifted. Not an attack. An adjustment, a subtle repositioning of its limbs on the ceiling. The movement was fluid, unhurried, and utterly silent. "Time," Okafor said. "We're leaving. Same formation as entry. Achebe, you're now rear guard. Keep your weapon on the ceiling until we're in the passage. Move." The team moved toward the entrance passage. They crossed the chamber, stepping between the formations on the floor. Okafor set the pace. Controlled, deliberate, no rushing. They reached the passage. Ruiz went first, then Karim. The civilians followed, flanked by Obi and Sato. Davidge, Okafor. Achebe came last, walking backward, her weapon trained on the ceiling. The passage swallowed them. The chamber fell behind, the creature on the ceiling receding into the darkness above. They moved in silence through the passage, following the chem lights, heading for the gallery. Okafor counted steps, counted lights, counted the distance to the surface in her head. A running calculation that served no tactical purpose but kept her mind occupied with numbers instead of the memory of that shape on the ceiling, pressed flat against the rock, watching. The gallery opened ahead of them, the space expanding, the ceiling rising, the darkness spreading out in every direction. The chem light they'd placed at the gallery's edge glowed green in the distance. Beyond it, the passage to Junction 7 and the route home. Karim stopped. The fist signal, halt, contact. 2 of them, on the gallery floor. Standing in the space between the team and the exit passage, positioned roughly 10 meters apart, their featureless heads oriented toward the lights. These were different from the one on the ceiling. Bigger, fully mature. 8 feet tall, the proportions settled into their final configuration. The limbs were long, multi-jointed, built for gripping and climbing and tearing. The torsos were dense and layered. The heads were smooth, elongated, featureless, tilted slightly downward. They were blocking the exit. 2 contacts, gallery floor, Karim reported. Mature specimens. They're positioned between us and the exit passage. Okafor assessed. The geometry was bad. The team was at the gallery's entrance, bunched in the passage mouth. The creatures were in the open space ahead, between them and the only way out. Behind them, the passage back to Chamber 9 and the creature on the ceiling. Contained, from both directions. "Achebe, forward," Okafor said. "Formation on me, we push through." The team formed up at the passage mouth. Achebe center with the squad weapon, Karim and Ruiz flanking, Obi and Sato on the civilians, Davidge behind Achebe. "Controlled advance," Okafor said. "Achebe, if they charge, open up. Everyone else engage on my command only. We move together. We reach that passage on the far side." They stepped into the gallery. The creatures watched. They didn't move. 30 meters. The creatures stood motionless. 40 meters. The formation held. Sato was on the right flank beside Tanaka, his weapon up, his light sweeping between the 2 creatures. Okafor could hear his breathing on the suit radio. Fast, shallow, the respiration of a young man holding himself together through training and will. 50 meters. The exit passage was visible now, the dark opening in the far wall, the chem light glowing green. At 60 meters, the creature on the right moved. A single lateral step, fluid, silent, repositioning itself closer to the exit passage, narrowing the gap, forcing the team to pass within meters of it. "It's hurting us," Karim said. "I know, keep moving." 65 meters, 70. The exit was right there. The creature on the right was 5 meters from the passage, its body angled towards their approach, not blocking, narrowing. "Achebe, put a burst into the ceiling above the right contact," Okafor said. "Distraction. On my signal, everyone sprints for the passage." Achebe adjusted aim. The team tensed. "Now!" The burst was deafening, a hammering roar that shattered the silence and filled the gallery with echoes. Stone exploded above the right creature. Rock dust and fragments cascaded downward. The creature recoiled, pulling back from the debris. "Move!" The team ran. Formation compressed, but held. Ruiz first, then Karim, then Tanaka, limping on her ankle but moving, then Marsh, then Obi. Sato was on the right side of the formation, the side closest to the creature that had repositioned, the side that the burst had driven it away from for a window of seconds that was already closing. The creature recovered, not slowly, not gradually. Instantly, the recoil transitioning into forward motion with no pause between. It came off the gallery floor in a movement that Okafor's eyes registered as a blur, and her brain refused to process at full speed. One moment it was 5 meters from the passage, flinching from rockfall. The next, it was among them. It hit Sato from the side. The sound was what Okafor would remember. Not a crash, not an impact in the way that human-scale collisions produced impacts. A wet, dense concussion. The sound of something enormously strong connecting with a human body at a speed that the human body was not engineered to survive. Sato left the ground. He left the ground entirely, his boots lifting from the rock, his body traveling laterally through the air for a distance that Okafor's mind measured at approximately 3 meters before he hit the gallery wall. He hit the wall and the wall broke him. The sound of the impact was structural. Things inside him that were rigid becoming things that were not. He dropped to the gallery floor and didn't move, and the creature was on him before he landed. It was fast. That was the thing the transmission had tried to convey and that no words could adequately prepare you for. Fast in a way that redefined the word, that made human speed, the speed of soldiers, of athletes, of every fast thing Okafor had ever seen, feel like a different category of motion entirely. The creature was on Sato, and it was doing something to him that Okafor's helmet light caught in fragments. The limbs working, the body hunched over his, the sound of things being opened that should have stayed closed. 3 seconds, maybe 4. "Achebe!" Okafor shouted. Achebe fired. The squad weapon roared, the burst aimed at the creature crouched over Sato. Rounds impacted. Okafor saw them hit, saw the creature's body jerk with each impact, saw fragments of the dark surface material spray from the points of contact. The creature reacted, not with a scream, not with a roar, but with a sharp, convulsive motion that took it off Sato and onto the gallery wall in a single movement. It climbed, fast, fluid, pouring up the rock face like water running in reverse, and disappeared into the darkness above the ceiling's reach. Sato was on the floor. Okafor's light found him, and she understood immediately, with the clinical precision that combat demanded, that there was nothing to be done. His torso was open. The suit was breached from collar to waist, the material split apart, and beneath it his body had been opened with a speed and force that had turned his chest cavity into a space that no longer contained what it was supposed to contain. His helmet was intact. His face, visible through the visor, was frozen in an expression of surprise, so pure that it looked almost peaceful. The face of a man whose brain had not had time to register pain before it had stopped registering anything at all. Parts of him were missing. The creature had taken tissue, muscle, organ, material. In the 3 seconds it had been on him, not randomly, selectively. The same targeted harvesting that the Tenebris medical logs had described. Feeding and efficiency combined. "He's gone," David said. He was beside the body, his medical training having carried him there automatically, his hands reaching for a patient before his eyes confirmed what his brain already knew. "He's gone, Commander." "Move," Okafor said. "Everyone, move now. Leave him." "Commander, we cannot carry him. We cannot help him. Move." The second creature, the one on the left, the one that had remained stationary during the crossing, was still in the gallery. It hadn't moved during the attack or after. It stood in its position, 10 meters from the exit passage, its featureless head tracking the team with the same patient attention it had maintained since they'd entered the space. It had watched its companion attack. It had not joined. It had observed. The team ran, through the exit passage, past the chem lights, into the tunnel system. Behind them, the gallery held its silence and its dead. Sato remained on the floor, his body cooling in the warm dark, his face still wearing that expression of surprise. 22 years old, 3rd deployment. His parents would receive a form letter from Aegis Corp, carefully worded, expressing regret. The form letter would not describe how he died. It would not mention the 3 seconds. It would not explain that the fastest, most violent thing any of them had ever witnessed had taken their son between one heartbeat and the next. Okafor ran and filed the grief in the place where grief lived during operations. A sealed compartment, pressurized, held shut by discipline and necessity. She would open it later. She would pay the cost later. Right now, the cost was a luxury she couldn't afford because there were 9 people still alive, and the gallery was behind them, but the tunnels were ahead and the things in the dark were not finished. There are more stories in this universe, more colonies, more creatures, more people who don't make it home. Like, subscribe and stay in the dark with us.